Oh, nice hat.
Yeah, just picked it up yesterday.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
It's German. I also got the water in the Bob Chin's Mai Tai cup today.
A podcast about bourbon and the ones who drink it. This is Bourbon Matters. Welcome to Bourbon Matters. I'm Jake.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Jake from Gold Eagle.
And today
are we putting like an official? Are we like going to use that now to designate?
I feel like it's weird. Each of us going, I'm Jake, and I'm Jake. We've got to differentiate a little bit.
I like it.
Yeah, I gotta find some.
And it's better than Jake from
thing
State
to put
Farm.
the end of my name. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, you should wear khakis and a red shirt sometime.
Jake from Bourbon Matters.
Yeah. So yeah, today we are talking about rye, Dan's favorite topic.
Yay. That's my enthusiasm for rye.
Yeah, so believe we are all drinking something different. Right?
I don't know. We didn't talk again, but we'll see.
Yeah, honestly, admittingly, I will not be partaking on this episode. After 3 days in Kentucky, I think my liver has had all the whiskey it can handle. But I do have a few different ryes here with me to talk about.
Yeah.
Nice. So how was your Kentucky trip? Where were you all at? Obviously, I'm guessing Lux Row with the hat.
Yeah, yep. It was a very good trip. We went down with the Adventures Club guys, and we actually went to a few new places. We stopped on the way down at Backbone, which is in Indianapolis. Have you guys heard of them?
No.
So kind of newer. They're kind of like partnering with a distillery there called Eighth Day Distilling that doesn't really do a lot of distribution. But the guy who started this distillery owns like one of the biggest private distributors down there in Indiana. And then just kind of started this distillery on the side on top of that. And they have a lot of random barrels from all over the place with huge plans to expand like their rick houses and just pretty much buy as much as they can. They have a lot of really good MGP. We reached out to them, or I should say the Adventures Club reached out to them a couple years ago to do some picks, and they kind of just said, we'll circle back when we can, but we just don't have enough right now to distribute outside of Indiana. But for sure, one of those distilleries that has some really, really good MGP barrels. Reminds me of like Nashville Barrel Company's MGP, Barrel Craft's MGP, and they're doing a lot of unique finishing. So we walked away with a double oak MGP bourbon, where the secondary oak barrel was like a charred wave stave. So it had like some grooves in the oak, but it wasn't like a Maker's 46 thing. It was kind of like the actual barrel was wavy staved. And then we walked away with a single malt that the guy purchased some distillery that went out of business in California, I believe. But it was like a 35-gallon barrel, and we all tasted it and thought it was bourbon. It didn't taste like a single malt, and then we found out it was 135 proof. So we were like, oh, we got to bring this one back. So that was on the way down. That was a nice way to break up the 5.5-hour drive. And then we did Heaven Hill. We did Elijah Craig barrel proof pick. That was our first time doing a pick at Heaven Hill. Then we went to Lux to do Ezra and Rebel. And what's cool about that one is we actually turned down all the Ezra samples that they poured for us. They weren't really that great. We were about to walk out of there, and then the guy came back with an additional sample that was a big step up from the 3 that we originally had. Then we finished it off with Peerless, picked a bourbon and a rye at Peerless. So pretty eventful 3 days.
Can you tell us what you've got from Heaven Hill?
Yeah, Elijah Craig barrel proof.
Nice.
It was 124 proof. We tried probably 7 different barrels, and this one had like the least impressive stats. It was 8-year, 124 proof. There were some higher proof and some higher aged ones in there, like some 10 years. But this barrel was by far the best. I mean, it was the first time I've ever pulled out a timer to time the finish before. It went for like 3.5, 4 minutes before it started to fade away. Wow. So, yeah, this will be a real good barrel for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
No mellow corn? They do their barrel picks there at the Experience, or where they do it for Heaven Hill?
Yeah, they walk you into that new rick house with the glass siding. And then they kind of had like a private event there going on today. So we like went way back into the rick house in a really thin alley or, hallway. So that was kind of cool to be really immersed inside the rick house, not just in that front area where you normally walk in and it's not, it's got the open space. So this was like truly in a rick house. And then they took us after to one of their original bonded rick houses that stood past the fire. So that was cool to go in there. That and Castle and Key are probably like the two oldest rick houses I've been in.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Heaven Hill, Fred Minnick's Ascot Awards came out this week, and Heaven Hill was actually his pick for Large Spirit Producer of the Year. So, interesting. Any of you got a favorite Heaven Hill brand?
Elijah Craig.
Yeah, I mean, Elijah Craig, that we definitely could have talked about Elijah Craig last week for, best value bourbons. Mm-hmm. But I think they have such a wide portfolio, and especially those bottled and bond $20, $25 bottles. They have, probably 6 or 7 of them that they're all very good quality.
Yeah. I think for me, it's funny because I've done 2 different blinds where I had no idea what the 4 whiskeys were and run by different people. And both times McKenna 10 was in there and that was my favorite. So I thought it's a good whiskey, but it always depends on what you're comparing it blind to, but twice that came out. So apparently I have a soft spot for it. But
yeah, I like Elijah Craig and McKenna. I actually like the 7-year bottled and bond a lot too, but I've heard a lot of people shit on it. But I actually enjoy it a lot.
I don't know. I think the people that shit on it are people that are just upset that they raised it from a 6-year to a 7-year and jumped the price by $25 a bottle. And I don't know. I think good on Heaven Hill. Like it's a lot better than what I remember in the 6-year, and you still can't get it. It still sells out everywhere. So I think it's priced right. And yeah, I think it's very, very flavorful for a 7-year bottle and bond.
Yeah,
nice. For the Ascot's, Heaven Hill was a large producer. The craft distiller was Starlight, which I don't think anyone's going to have too much of a problem. They keep coming out with some really, really good stuff, some really unique things.
Mm-hmm.
Their blender of the year was Penelope, which I think I've said it before, I'm not a huge fan of their stuff.
That's a weird pick in my opinion. There's way better blenders out there.
Yeah, especially because Penelope, no offense to them, like I am a fan of Penelope, but a lot of their stuff is just churn and burn. They get barrels, they throw it together in a batch, and they put it right out. And I think they do a lot of really cool, different finishes, and I mean their brand looks amazing. But I don't know if I would have picked them as the best blender.
Yeah, that was a little shocker to me. Breakout Distiller of the Year. I actually was really proud or happy to see. If you go back to one of our early episodes, one of the first ryes that I actually liked, and one of the first distilleries that was of decent size that actually reached back out to us and shared our content was Smooth Ambler, and they won Breakout Distiller of the Year, which we liked that. What was the rye that you had that we really, really liked? That's hard to find.
The Founders series Cast Strength, which is absolutely excellent. I think I have 2 backups of it because I went out and found extras because I liked it so much.
I always liked their Contradiction bourbon. If I had a bottle, because I don't have one right now, that I was going to use that last week for our value, because some people buy it because it's got an elephant on it for the bourbon and the rye for the Contradiction series, but for 30, $35, it had a heavy. I said that was more of like a red apple flavor to it. You guys move much Smooth Ambler at Gold Eagle, Jake?
No, we really don't. I'm not really sure why. We have the whole line. I think I like their old bottles, the taller, skinnier ones. And I don't think people have really caught on with the new bottle shape and kind of redesign they went through about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have a really good Smooth Ambler pick that took down Smoke Wagon Uncut pretty easily in a blind tasting.
Yeah,
I didn't know you had a
gotten
Smooth
a
Ambler.
couple old
Yeah, we
Scout
do.
picks, right?
Yeah, it's an old Scout. I think it's just under 6 year, 120 proof MGP. It's a good value product if you like MGP.
Well, when we get down to the best actual bottles that they had went through, so basically how they came up with their whiskey of the year for the Ascot Awards, they had a few different categories of whiskey. They picked the winner in all those categories, then put them against each other. So for them, the best bourbon was Bullet Barrel Strength. The best rye was Smooth Ambler Contradiction Rye. The best scotch was Ardbeg 19-year-old Batch 3. Best American Single Barrel Whiskey was Middle West Spirit Straight Rye Whiskey. Dark Pumpernickel Cask Strength. Best American
Middle
Single
West,
Malt.
man, that's a distillery to keep a close eye on.
Best American Single Malt, Old Line American Single Malt Sherry Cask Finish. I don't think I've ever seen much Old Line in the area, but I could have just been glancing over it.
No, I don't think I've ever heard of that before.
I haven't heard of them.
The best American whiskey they had was Old Carter Straight American Whiskey. The best wheat whiskey was Journeyman Distillery Corsets, Whips, and Whiskey. And the last couple of best light whiskey was Penelope. Best Tennessee was Jack 10. And out of all of those, they picked the best wheat. They picked the best whiskey as the best wheat whiskey winner, which is Journeyman Distillery Corset, Whips, and Whiskey. They had for their whiskey of the year.
Is that that's like a special release, right?
I don't know too much.
I think it's
a cask strength.
It used to be an everyday, and now they don't have much of it as they used to.
Oh, okay.
But it also won best wheat whiskey last year as well. So
on his awards,
yeah, it was
Pretty
double
solid.
platinum this year, double platinum the year before, and winner back-to-back years. So
I actually don't hate that list. It had a pretty good wide variety, big distilleries, craft distilleries. But I'm always curious, like how does he narrow it down? How do you make those selections? Is it all blind, and how much stuff are you tasting to put in
I don't
that
know
blind?
how he does his top 100 list. Is he just sitting there with 100 whiskeys in front of him? And just because if so, you'd want to be one of the later ones, I think.
Probably like 1,000 whiskeys.
Yeah. Well, he goes. I mean, and he just ranks his top 100. So I don't know if he just every one he takes barrel note or takes a lot of notes and then gives it a ranking of some sort, and then goes back to his highest rankings.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that's how it is. It's not like all in one day picking all the whiskeys. It's throughout the course of the year. But yeah, just like the finals and how he really determines the final list would be interesting to see him go through that.
The one thing, Jake, that you should shoot for is they do have a best whiskey club barrel pick.
Ooh.
So maybe something for some of the people that you do barrel picks with.
What took that? Yeah, absolutely.
It is 5280 Whiskey Society Russell Single Barrel Thunder Chicken. So there's they do that, and they have their platinum awards, their double platinum awards, all that stuff. We have a few of those at Whiskey Acres. We didn't submit anything this year for it though. So, but that was some of the Minix information. Yeah, it was nice. Nice. I think he should do a best tater category though.
The
I
ultimate
think that
tater
would be
whiskey
fun.
for the year. Yeah.
Yeah, tater
Yeah.
whiskey of the year. But so that was some other things. Just that was came out. Yeah, was it that Wednesday or Thursday? I think it was Thursday. Maybe he did all that release. So not too long ago. But enough about Fred Minnick. What does he know about whiskey? Let's talk about our whiskey, our Jake's. Jake, what you just finished your sip, so it should be fresh on your lips. What type of rye are you going with?
Yeah, so I went with the Bardstown Origin Series rye.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I just got this a few weeks ago. So this is the first time I'm trying it. It's a 95.5 6-year-old. And this is, for those that don't know, the Origin Series Bardstown are all their own distillate. So no more blends or anything like that. What's interesting about this rye is it's aged normally and then finished in a hybrid American oak and cherry wood barrel for up to 6 months. So I also pulled this bottle, which is the West Virginia Great Barrel Company collaboration that they did, which is a rye whiskey finished in infrared toasted cherry oak barrels that came out sometime last year. Because it seems like this was the prototype for this Origin series. So I just brought that out to
Yeah, I didn't know
reference
that
because yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I didn't know that the origin was that cherry wood, but that makes a lot of sense that that was kind of like a little test run that they did. That's
Yeah,
cool.
and like you definitely get it on the palate. On the nose, it's pretty similar to like an MGP rye. That like the mint and like herbs and stuff like that. On the palate, it's definitely got some of that cherry note, and a lot of the toasted oak comes through as well. The finish is pretty good. Their notes are ripe cherry resonates throughout toasted oak, highlighted by white flowered dill and cinnamon. Rich round mouthfeel bursts with fruit flavor, leading to a one of a kind sublime finish. I'm really bad at picking out exactly what herbs I'm tasting, so I'm not going to confirm the white flower, dill, and cinnamon, but it has a lot of the same kind of notes that an MGP rye has, but the cherry's definitely more present and gives it a bit more rounded kind of flavor profile with that like hint of sweetness.
The problem is in that description, you said the word sublime, and now I just hear the song Santeria playing nonstop in my head.
Yep.
So thank you for that.
So yeah, I would
haven't
recommend this one. It's pretty good.
I haven't tried their rye origin rye. I tried their origin bourbon. Wasn't a big fan. I guess probably part of the problem is like one of when Bardstown had it was the Discovery the red label. I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Fusion was brewed.
Yeah.
I really liked one of the Discovery series. But the other side of that was it was also way more expensive than their Origin series.
Yep.
I'll talk about it with rye too when I talk about my rye, but there's some tasting notes in there that might make me shy away from that one. But
yeah, you are not typically a fan of the MGP rye, right?
not
So,
overly,
like,
no.
I don't think this is really up your alley, but that's like my favorite of all time is that the 95.5 mash bill. So yeah, I'm enjoying this one quite a bit.
Nice. I I've been kind of digging in on the ryes that I like. I don't have a ton of actual just straight. I think there's only 3 or 4 rye whiskeys on the shelf, and the rest. I think I actually now have more single malt or Scotch than I do rye
Hmm.
On the shelf.
I guess that checks out for you.
Yeah, it's when we first started, I was really I wasn't big into rye, and then I will still say one of the worst whiskeys I ever had was the Whistle Pig Piggyback 6-year rye, and I think
Oh,
I was still
yeah.
it,
Hmm.
that had a dry straw flavor to it. Like I said, like when I used to raise pigs, and you put straw down for bedding, and straw dust is everywhere. I don't like the dry, strawy ryes. Um, and then I did figure out this weekend that the dill ryes are not. I hate pickles. I hate dill pickles, and I think when I get the notes of the dill, I tend to shy away from them as well too. But obviously, we always have the joke that I don't like ryes. I do. Some of my favorite bourbons are high rye bourbons,
Hmm.
but I am drinking one of my favorite ryes, which is nice little Whiskey Acres barrel pick. Oh, hold on.
Attaboy.
We'll
Want
just
that, but
go like that. So this is a hand picked barrel 719, with a nice, yeah. Hide the place that hand picked it because
I'm
fortunately it
glad.
wasn't cold.
I'm glad you went with Whiskey Acres.
It's this rye. Some of the like I said, I like high rye bourbons, and then I do tend to like the ryes that have a higher percentage of corn in them, and that aren't just straight to 95.5. There are some 95.5
Kentucky
ryes
Rye.
yeah, there are some 95.5 ryes that I like. But our Whiskey Acres rye is 75, 25% corn, 75% rye. So you get a little bit of that sweetness in it. Our rye has a lot of our ryes are very strong on the more minty flavor notes of it.
Hmm.
And that's the ryes that I seem to also fall in line with too, is a little bit of the sweetness from the corn that cuts through the rye spice. And then the nice little mint on the end of it. I think if someone's going to give me a rye, that's the better chance of me liking one is going to be more under those flavor profiles. Again, it's not that I don't like ryes. I prefer still to this day, and probably always will, take bourbon over rye any day of the week. But there's just some rye flavors that are a complete turnoff to me, and it makes me hesitant to try some. I've been more open the last year, but no, I like our rye a lot. We just did a bottling a week or so ago, and even though it was just our normal straight rye, still have a little bit of that mint flavor to it. But this is, I know Jake, you have a couple bottles of it, and Gold Eagle Jake got to try it.
Yeah, that's got to be one of my top 10 favorite whiskeys. Is that particular single barrel? It's just so good.
And it's funny too because we talk about Bacta spirits, and Raj is going on a big vintage of when certain same thing, different wines or different vintages. He's kind of doing that with his whiskey. We do know that a couple of years the crop that came out of the ground produced some some better flavored whiskey, some better flavored rye that we've had in the past. So it's not a big. I mean, they're going to use it as a marketing thing, which is good because it definitely does make different flavors every year to year. But we have noticed we had a couple of really good runs. They've found out they had a couple of really good years that produced some really good flavorful ryes. So,
I mean, that's definitely. I don't think that's really marketing at all. I think that's something that should be touched on by more distilleries. It all starts with the grain and the quality of the grain. And wine is more extreme of an example because the stuff isn't aged as long as whiskey, and there's probably a lot more flavor that comes from the fruit. Whereas whiskey, you get a lot more flavor from the barrel. But yeah, I mean, you can definitely have better better crop one year or the other. You guys know that more than anyone with all your corn varietals and the quality of corn that you're starting with.
You used the right word this time when you said
I did,
varietals.
yeah.
You were learning so much.
Either way, why does it matter?
You need to get a trucker hat and a flannel shirt, and then
Give
a
me a
nice
John
round
Deere
piece of straw.
sweatshirt.
Yeah, come on down. We'll hook you up. But no, so
But I'm a
yeah, that's all I really had to say on that. But it's a shame it's not a Gold Eagle pick, but this happened way before I started working at Whiskey Acres or even really knew Jake from Gold Eagle a ton. So
yeah, no, I'm actually
I'll
a
let it
big fan
slide.
of Whiskey Acres rye, and I've heard other people say the same. And you kind of set me up perfectly for what I wanted to talk about with rye whiskey. Was
You
that
planned it.
there are so many different types of ryes and so many different flavors that you can get out of ryes. And I do think a lot of people think they don't like rye as much as bourbon, just because they maybe had one rye that was too minty, one rye that was too spicy, and then they automatically shy away from rye. And you can get a much more vast variety of flavors when it comes to rye. So it takes a lot more time to kind of dive deep into and figure out what you like and what you don't like. And I kind of separate ryes into four categories. You can get a floral rye, which you'll get a lot of like earthy, grassy, herbs, dill kind of flavors going on. You can get a really minty rye, spearmint, more of like a lighter, grassier mint. And then you can get a really spicy rye, which is typically what we see in those 95.5 ryes. Then you can also get a lot of sweet ryes. And by sweet, meaning like a caramel sweetness, which I get in like Peerless ryes, or like a vanilla, lighter frosting sweetness, like in the Hard Truth rye, which I thought for sure one of you guys was going to do Hard Truth for this.
Well, we already did at least 2 episodes on it, so
Oh, okay.
I picked
Makes
something
sense.
else.
Can't plug them too much. They haven't sent us anything special or anything. So yeah, but yeah, with those different categories of rye, and those flavors can also mix and match with each other, and it's very hard to predict what that rye is going to taste like until you try it. There's not really like a char number or a age that gives off certain notes. And speaking of age, you can get a lot of really good 2, 3, 4 year ryes. You can get a lot of really good 10, 15, 20 year ryes. So that helps play into the wide variety of flavors that you get as well. And one of the ryes I was going to talk about is a Peerless single barrel that we did last year, especially just coming from the distillery this past weekend. There was a couple guys in the group that said they don't like rye, but this rye that we picked tasted like a bourbon. Like you would never guess it was a rye until you were told it was a rye. It just had a lot of like corn and caramel sweetness going on and not a lot of spice at all.
That's the mesquite barrel too, right?
Yeah, this is the sweet mesquite barrel.
Yeah,
It's kind of got
that's
like
an
a barbecue
excellent bottle
vibe
as
going
well.
on. Yeah. But yeah, we just picked a 6-year rye, which I think takes this one to another level even.
One thing with ryes, another way that I like ryes that I didn't talk about a ton is I do, compared to most ryes, I like my minty ryes, but then probably my second favorite, I guess if you want to call it like a category of rye, is rum finish. And again, I think it's because I'm getting some more of the sweetness out of it.
Yep.
You see a lot of rum finished ryes out there, but I tend to prefer those over just your normal MGP 95.5s. But if it's an MGP 95.5 or any type of 95.5 mix and rum finished, the chances are I'll like it more than a non-rum finished.
Yeah, the rum definitely helps round out a lot of the spiciness, and gives it a great balance in almost all cases. We've touched on that before, I'm sure. But yeah, like rum finished rye is like a perfect combo. I think that's one of the like reasons why this Origin series works so well is because that cherry wood gives it a very sweet note that balances out a lot of that spiciness that's typical of 95.5 mash bills.
Jake, anything to say on rum finish? You like rum finishes or not too much?
Yeah, no, I do. I'm a rum fan. I definitely enjoy. Actually tried a Peerless rum finish when we were there, rye finish and rum. And if I would have known you liked it so much, I would have offered to pick up a bottle for you because they had them for sale. Um, but yeah,
If it's a Peerless sale, is it really on sale?
well, I didn't say on sale. I said for sale.
I like Peerless. I think their price point on some of their stuff is a little high.
It is a little high, but would they're kind of not making a secondary market for their products, and they're still selling through everything. So I don't know. I think it could be argued that yes, it's very expensive for a 5-year, 6-year whiskey, which is typically what their stuff is. But I do think they're very good. But yes, like that is, you're going to spend 120 to 160 bucks on a bottle of Peerless all day long at the distillery, and it's pretty expensive for the age statement that they carry. But I do think they are very good.
Yeah, no, I don't have any complaints about the whiskey. I think their price point is a little high.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a completely different story. But no, it's not that I want a lot of rum finished rye. It's just that's more of I do enjoy more of a rum finished rye than I do a normal straight rye. But
the one I'm most excited for is the Old Elk rum finish rye.
Yeah, I don't know why we still haven't gotten that.
Call Greg Metzger up, ask him.
Yeah, it's been showing in their system, and every time we try to order it, it says nothing's in stock. So I'm not sure what's going on there.
I will always have a nice place in my heart from Old Elk because they asked to use one of the photos I took of one of their bottles on their own social media. So. I was out kayaking one day and I took a bottle and I had it. My kayak has a little spot for a cell phone holder, and it's got a bungee strap to go around your cell phone, but it'll stretch out far enough for the whiskey bottle to fit in. So took a nice little photo of that, and they reused it. I tried because that's when they had messaged and Jenna got it, and they asked if they could use it, and I told her to message back, yeah, you can use it as long as you send me a bottle of Infinity Blend. And they said they didn't have any, which I knew was a lie, just them stepping over the line, but I didn't care. Gotta love my Old Elk because of that.
How about a t-shirt? That sounds easier to do.
Yeah, t-shirt. Yeah. T-shirt, a bottle of Infinity Blend, a weekend at the cabin out there. One of the three. But yeah, we'll still use it for the show because it's fun that Dan hates ryes and I enjoy that. But no, there's certain ryes out there that tickle my fancy a little bit. Just a little bit, though.
Just a little.
And by fancy, I'm talking about a spot of undercarriage.
All right. Moving on.
How do ryes sell in your store or go at the tasting bar compared to bourbon? What's the normal?
It's way behind where it should be. Way behind. And I think it just goes back to that, negative connotation that people try one rye and they get a minty note and they don't like that, and then they just assume they don't like ryes. So I think there's a lot more hesitancy with people to kind of explore. Maybe they don't have as much patience, or maybe it's just that bourbon is America's spirit, and that excites people more because we do love sweet things, and you're going to get consistently a sweet whiskey almost every time with a bourbon. Kind of less to worry about. But I think ryes perform very well at the tasting bar because people are a little hesitant to pull the trigger on a bottle, so they want to try it first. But I think some of our best store picks we've ever done are ryes, and some of them are still sitting on the shelf. And we had to kind of take a look at that section and just say, hey, we're going to pull back big time from doing rye store picks just because they just don't sell as well as bourbon does.
It's a shame too, because I would agree that a lot of the picks I've had of Ryes that you've done are just so good. And
Thank
it's,
you.
I think a lot of the people like, I think there's a couple different factors. You touched on one that I think the American palate is just sweeter. But also that, I think there's kind of a stigma around rye that it's like your grandpa or great grandpa's drink, and like people aren't interested in it for, for
Or
whatever
like
reason.
Canadian,
Yeah.
Canadian rye was a big thing. So
Yeah, because like I don't think many people have given it the fair shot that it probably deserves. Or they've had like old overhauled or something. They've been like, oh, this isn't good. Like, and just write off all Ryes, because a
yeah.
like $12 bottle wasn't up to their standard, or whatever the case.
And I mean, I find all the time in our blind tastings when we put a rye round in there, everyone, is a fan. They love it, and a lot of those people end up saying, "Oh, I didn't know I liked ryes," or I haven't really been a huge fan of ryes, but that was my favorite round. So I do think they're just people need to kind of open their minds and work to expand their palate a bit more. To try and dive deeper into rye whiskeys.
Yep.
I think so. I think one problem, and I think there's an easy solution to getting more people to like rye whiskey, and that is Buffalo Trace has to come out with something besides just Sazerac. Because Sazerac you can always find, but if they came out with like something that like marketed a little bit more special, and you got some of the taters to
E.H.
flip
Taylor
over
Buffalo
on,
Trace rye. Yeah, come out with more Taylor rye.
Yeah, I think you'd get more because Taylor Rye is a pretty taterific whiskey.
Yeah,
I
even
think,
that though, I don't think people are as gung ho about getting as the other stuff.
Yeah, it's very hit or miss. I feel like everyone who I talk to about Taylor rye either loves it or hates it. There's like no in between.
So one game we play at work every once in a while, we'll have like 6 different pours laid out, and the game is called Find the Rye. And Jake, maybe that's something you can look at having as a tasting night some night, is throwing a couple of ryes just randomly in a blind, and you have no idea. And when you don't know it's rye, it's like you can sit there and say, I drink a lot of whiskey, I can easily tell the rye. There are some times where it is a lot more difficult than you would think when you have no idea what it is. So that would always be a fun one to do a blind tasting possibly, and sprinkle a couple ryes in when it's all mostly bourbon, and see what people's reaction is to it and see how well they pick them out. Because I think you could use that as a way to convert some people as well too. Because when you have no idea when you just know it's a whiskey, you think you can tell, but it's harder sometimes than you think.
Yeah, there's for sure been a couple blinds that you've done at Gold Eagle where I 100% thought that it was a bourbon, and it was like, I don't even insert any rye, like whatever it was.
Yeah.
But there's also times you've gone the other way on that too.
Yeah, or I thought Eagle Rare was
This is a rye. This is a rye. This is a rye. It was Eagle Rare. This is a rye.
Well, yeah, because that spice note, obviously most bourbon has rye in it. And even when you just have 10 to 21% rye in a bourbon, a lot of times you can tell it's a rye bourbon. You get that spice.
Yeah.
But then you also you get spice on wheated bourbons too, and sometimes people think that a wheated bourbon is a rye, even though there's no rye in there, because wheat can sometimes give you sweetness, sometimes it can give you spice.
Yep. Anyway, just a thought. It's fun at work when we get to do it, because I'm still doing pretty well in that game, but it's harder than I ever thought it would be. Like when they said it, I'm like, this isn't going to be that hard, and you sit there and you're like, ooh, maybe this one, but maybe this one.
Yeah, it's harder than you think.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on rye or rice? Roberto's not here. We can talk about rice too.
Rice.
Jake, you weren't you weren't around too much. Roberto has a little bit of an accent, and when he talks about rice,
he says rice.
It's hard to tell. It sounds like rice. But
Rise.
Speaking of the devil, I did talk to him the other week, and he's been bit that bullet and decided to talk to Roberto. No, he's been getting to know the owners and a lot of the staff at Milam and Green because it's only like 30 minutes from his house. And he was telling me a story. There's probably going to be a drink on the menu at their bar there named after him. It's not on the menu right now, but there's a tentative name for it. And he was there and the bar manager was trying to make up different old fashions. And she did one that was floral and jalapeno infused. And Roberto really liked it. So he told a bunch of his friends in the area. And then a couple weeks later, he went back to Milam and Green, and he said the bar manager was there. And she goes, Roberto, a couple weeks ago, like 5 or 6 different people came in and ordered that. And it's a pain in the ass to make. And all I could think about was fucking Roberto. Yeah. So there's a tentative name of a drink called the fucking Roberto that's off menu at Milam and Green right now, which I hope they go with it. I'm sure as a business, they'll probably clean it up, which is the right thing to do. But if I ever make it down to Texas, I'll have to go have a fucking Roberto.
Yeah.
But any other thoughts on Rye?
It's good.
Go out and explore, taste some different things, and expand your palate, expand your mind. Keep an open mind when it comes to rye. It's a really nice change of pace to have in your repertoire. And I think you'll be surprised and impressed by all the wide range of flavors that you can get with rye whiskey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tasting bars are your best friend if you're
for sure
unsure. So
yeah, and that's kind of how I got it, is I tried a few different ones, and then you start to narrow down that flavor profile that you like. But sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of a rye to throw things up a little bit. So, and get our rye whiskey acres really good. Just
I second that.
It is
my plug. Other plugs, might as well plug our favorite liquor store that we go to.
Heck yeah, Gold Eagle.
Oh, I was going to talk about the one on the bottom. I was going to talk about this one.
Don't you joke about that. goldeaglewine.com, Instagram, Gold Eagle Wine, Facebook, Gold Eagle Spirits. Follow us, download our app, and come in and check out our rye section because it has grown probably tenfold since I've started working there 6 years ago.
Yeah, and pick up the Hard Truth Barrel Pick.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really good.
And that's kind of a rye that sometimes doesn't taste like a rye. So if you don't think you like rye, go give it a try.
Jake, you want to tell them about our socials?
Yes, you can find us at Bourbon Matters on Instagram and Facebook. You can listen and watch us on Spotify and listen wherever podcasts are. And you can watch us on YouTube. Like, rate, subscribe, comment, share. Click the notification bell. Talk shit. Whatever.
Yep. Awesome. All right, guys. Fun hanging out tonight.
Yep.
Cheers.
All right.
See you guys. Cheers.